ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय राधिकायै प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायण गोस्वामिनिति नामिने। श्री कृष्ण लीला कथने सुदक्षम औदार्य माधुर्य गुणैशयुक्तम वरम वरेण्यम पुरुषम महांतम श्रीनारायणं त्वं शिरसा नमामि। त्रिदण्डिनां भक्तशिरोमणिं च श्रीकृष्णपादाब्जधृतये हृदि चैतन्यलीलामृतसारसारम् नारायणं त्वं सततं प्रपद्ये। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त वामन गोस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो विष्णुपादाय आचार्य सिंहरूपिणे श्री श्रीमद्भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव इति नामिने। अतिमर्त्य चरित्राय स्वाश्रितानां च पालिने जीव दुःखे सदार्ताय श्रीनाम प्रेमदायिने गौराश्रय विग्रहाय कृष्ण कामैकचारिणे रूपानुगा प्रवराय विनोदिति स्वरूपिणे प्रभुपादंतरंगाय सर्वसद्गुणशालिने मायावातमोघ्नाय वेदांतर्थविदे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती इति नामिने। श्रीवार्षभानवी देवी दयिताय कृपाब्धये कृष्ण संबंध विज्ञान दायिने प्रभवे नमः। माधुर्य उज्ज्वल प्रेमाढ्य श्रीरूपानुगा भक्तिदा श्री गौर करुणा शक्ति विग्रहाय नमस्तुते। नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दीनतारिणे रूपानुगा विरुद्धाप सिद्धांत ध्वांतहारिणे। नमो गौर किशोराय साक्षात् वैराग्य मूर्तये विप्रलंभ रसाम्बोधे पादाम्बुजायते नमः। नमो भक्ति विनोदाय सच्चिदानंद नामिने गौर शक्ति स्वरूपाय रूपानुगावरायते गौराविर्भाव भूमिस्त्वं निर्दिष्ट सजना प्रिय वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्याय नामने गौर त्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये। जयतां सुरतो पंगुः मन्मन्दः मतेर्गति मत्सर्वस्वपदां भोजो श्रीराधा मदन मोहनो दिव्यवृन्दारण्यकल्पद्रुमादा श्रीमद्रत्नागार सिंहासनस्थौ श्री श्रीराधा शीलगोविन्ददेवौ प्रेष्ठालिभिः सेव्यमानौ स्मरामि श्रीमान् रासरसारम्भी वंशीवटतटस्थितः कर्शनवेणुस्वनहि गोपी गोपीनाथ श्रियस्तु नः ॐ वृन्दाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च कृष्णभक्तिप्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तवतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे First of all, I offer my unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of my most worshipable spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedant Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedant Swami Prabhupada and His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Arupanuga Guru Varga. And my respects to everyone who has very enthusiastically joined this course on Jaiva Dharma. Today is a very, very auspicious day. This morning at the temple, we were also discussing that how these 3 days have been so auspicious. Friday was the appearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is the author of this wonderful book called Jaiva Dharma. And then yesterday was the disappearance day of Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur. And today is Vishwaroop Mahotsav, the day the elder brother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his name was Vishwaroop, and he accepted sannyas, which is the renounced order of life. And today is also the day when two other very illustrious personalities, our two great grand spiritual masters, His Divine Grace Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, accepted sannyas, and then few years later in 1959 His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedant Swami Prabhupada, he also accepted the renounced order today itself. So we are praying at the lotus feet of all these great acharyas to bless us so we are successful in this humble attempt to study Jaiva Dharma. I by no means have any qualification to speak on this matter, but by the inspiration of Gurudev, Shri Narayan Maharaj, who specifically instructed that if we want to make serious progress in bhakti, and if we really want to understand what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, and what are the most important aspects of Gaudiya Vaishnav philosophy, then we must make a serious attempt to study this book. When I met Shri Gurudev in late 1990, and then when I asked him that what book does he recommend that I should study. Before that, I had studied Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and some other books written by Shri Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. So Gurudev said that you must study Jaiva Dharma. So in 1991, when I came to Houston to pursue my studies, that's when I started reading Jaiva Dharma. And I can say that I was just in awe at the style and the simplicity, the way Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has presented these very deep esoteric aspects of the Gaudiya philosophy of Sanatan Dharma in such a clear and concise as well as systematic way. And if some of you, I'm hoping that you have read Jaiva Dharma. If not, we will be studying together during this course and hopefully continue through the rest of the chapters of Jaiva Dharma. But the way he has put together this book and explained very difficult philosophical points, which if you even start reading Bhagavad Gita, it's sometimes not easy to understand. And if you read the other scriptures, there is at times not a sequence in which you understand the philosophy. But in here, and we will discuss a little bit more about it, he presented it very, very wonderfully. So I am making this humble attempt by the inspiration of Shri Gurudev, and I have limited understanding and limited capability. So if I make any mistakes while trying to explain Jaiv Dharam, then it's all my error, it's my fault. And if you understand and whatever is understood and explained clearly, it's all the credit is to our Guru Varga. So I was initially thinking of doing this only in Hindi or English. And I thought, let me just quickly do a quick survey to see how many are interested in Hindi or English. Then I will just pick up one language and we will just do at one time in one language. But by Gurudev's blessings, there was a very enthusiastic response. And then I decided that we will do two separate classes, one in Hindi and one in English, and also at different times because there's many devotees from India and other countries who are also interested in studying Jaiv Dharam. So we will have the Hindi class every Saturday in the morning at 9:30 Central Time, and the English class on Sundays at 8 p.m. this time. So those of you who understand both Hindi and English, if you're not able to join one, you can join the other class. We will continue for about 4 months till about third week of January, and in between, depending on some festivals, we may take a weekend or so off, but we'll try to have it every week, once a week. And if you also miss somehow, then I will be posting these on YouTube, so you can always hear there. But I would encourage that if you can join in person, that way we can have some interaction and also discuss, have some question answers. So why I'm calling it a course, and we will have the same content in both Hindi and English, just a little bit difference, the differences of the language. And yesterday also I was discussing that why are we calling it a course? It could be just a lecture, or just like we have other katha, it could be just done like that. So when I was thinking about doing this, I was trying to see and understand how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself wrote this book. And he wrote this book specifically in this style because I think his intent was that this should be done, should be studied very systematically, and should be studied just like we go to college or the school and undertake a course. See, when we go and just listen to a lecture at the temple, there is, of course, seriousness and there's some understanding, but many times we don't commit ourselves to that level as we commit ourselves when we go to the university and take a course. Why? Because course is sequential. You start from the basic concepts and then slowly build on those concepts, right? So all of you have been to school and you have taken many courses. So when you started studying mathematics, you started with 1, 2, 3, and then you went to the higher numbers, how to do addition, subtraction, then multiplication, and slowly advanced to higher concepts, right? So when we do study a scripture, specifically like Jaiva Dharam, as a course, it is much more beneficial. And there is also a level of commitment when we do it as a course. So also it's time bound. So both in terms of this lecture, time of this class, as well as the span of the first part of this course, we'll keep it very structured. and try to finish things in time. That said, it is also important that more than trying to cover the number of chapters, we also have a good understanding of these concepts. So even though my goal will be to finish the first 6 chapters, but if for some reason we are only able to finish 5 chapters, that's fine, and we'll continue in the second part of this course. And just like in a course, we all have a textbook, right? When we go to the temple to listen to a lecture, we don't carry a book with us. But when we go to the university to attend a class, we always have the book with us. So again, I would strongly recommend that each one of you have a copy of Jaiva Dharam. And just to check how many of the attendees have a copy of Jaiva Dharam, I'm just going to do a quick poll, and you will see these questions come up on the screen, and you can quickly answer. The first question is, do you have a copy of Jaiva Dharam? And the second question is, have you read Jaiva Dharam before? This will help me structure the course accordingly. So we'll give everyone a minute. And all these polls are going to be anonymous. So as we go through these classes, we will have a couple of questions, in between. So don't worry, nobody will know, including me, that who's answering what. So even if as we go, sometimes you may get an incorrect answer, that doesn't matter. The whole point here is, are we collectively getting a good understanding of Jaiva Dharam? So that's the only purpose of these quick questions that I will be asking. So 9 of, at least most of you have responded. And the good thing is that most of you have a copy of Jaiva Dharam. If you don't have one, you can order the English version from bhaktistore.com. I would again strongly recommend having a physical copy of the book, because these books, when we touch them, you get the mercy of the acharyas. So while we can always read them online, but having a physical copy is the most recommended. But for some reason, if you're not able to get a copy of the book, then you can go to purebhakti.com, and then you can from there you can download a copy of Jaiva Dharam. So as I said, as we go through, I will also we will have some questions during the class. Also, after today is the introduction, but generally the format would be, we'll study for the first 25 or so minutes. We'll take a break for 5-10 minutes for any questions anyone may have. We'll again continue for another 25 minutes or so, and then take an additional questions, and try to finish in about 1 hour, 10 minutes max. And at that point, I'm sure for many of you, this may be late in the night. If you need to leave, that's perfectly fine. But if anyone has questions, I'll be happy to stay back and answer any questions, that you have. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written this book in a very lucid manner. As we start reading and studying, you will see, and those of you who have read Jaiva Dharam, his style is very simple. And therefore, I'm also going to try and explain this in a very simple way, but at the same time, because the concepts sometimes are deep, then even though with the best effort, it may not be as simple. But my goal is that we should all together be able to understand everything that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining in this book. I was sharing yesterday also that when I was here in the university at Rice, so we had a guest speaker, and he came, and at the start of the lecture, he said that, who is the best speaker? The best speaker is when he speaks, the first 1/3 everyone understands, and the next 1/3 some understand and some don't understand, and the last 1/3 nobody should understand, because then everyone will be in awe, or this is a great speaker. But that's not the way our acharyas speak, and neither is that the way I'm going to try present, because our goal is that everyone should understand 100% of what is in Jaiva Dharma. So, so please try and attend all the classes. I understand sometimes because of some personal situation you may not be, but if you, for any other reason, don't quit the class. Because in spiritual life, just like in any endeavor, it is very important that we maintain our enthusiasm and our commitment. In over 4 decades that I have been associated with Krishna consciousness, I have seen that many times our enthusiasm and commitment weakens, because that is the nature of the material world, and the effect of the Maya also shows up, and we sometimes become a bit um, unenthusiastic. So therefore, Sri Rupa Goswami, he in his book Upadeshamrit, he specifically states Utsaha Nishchayat Dhairyat Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat. He says one who is a sincere seeker of the spiritual life, the very first thing he says, Utsaha. Utsaha means enthusiasm, that we should keep up our enthusiasm. And then he says, Nishchayat, that determination should be there, that no matter what, I am going to commit myself to it. And then Dharya. Dharya means patience. Because when we start learning something, sometimes things may be, many of you have been probably listening to Harikatha and have a good background. But sometimes, it is difficult, but we have to keep our patience. And if we stay sincerely, then Krishna is so merciful. Our Guru Varga are so merciful that they will reveal all the meanings within our heart. So let's stay enthusiastic and let's stay committed to studying Jaiva Dharma together. Now, one question that comes up is, why is it important to understand philosophy, which is called Siddhanta? And so many books, specifically in Sanatan Dharma, so many different books are there. And I'm sure all of you are very interested in understanding the Siddhanta, the philosophy. But this question does come up, that why do we have to understand? Why can't we just chant? Why can't we just listen to the pastimes? And that is it. Because bhakti, because this is a process of bhakti or devotion, and ultimately bhakti is only emotion, bhav. So yes, that is true. But the question is, what type of bhav, what type of emotion? There are those emotions that are very temporary. They are not based on proper understanding. For example, you go to the temple and there are deities of Radha Krishna. And when you see the deities, they're dressed very beautifully, right? Nice shingar is done, nice, gorgeous dress, and flowing all around. Then beautiful garlands they are wearing, heavy jewelry. And you see, oh, wow, how beautiful the Lord is. Another day you go and Krishna is just standing there, and Radha Krishna, very minimal shingar, very simple dresses are there, hardly any jewelry, no garlands, nothing. And then, oh, today not looking very nice. So what are we really seeing? Are we seeing Radha Krishna, or are we seeing their dress, right? So many times we see the dress, we don't see the Lord. Similarly, when we do kirtan, many times we are just more attracted by the music, by the instruments, not by the actual sweetness of the holy name. So if there is someone who is a great singer and with a nice set of instruments, singing very melodiously, and nowadays kirtan is very famous, so a lot of people do kirtan, which is a very good thing, and we get very attractive. But then there is some, you go and you see in Vrindavan, and there are some devotee who is not not with the melodious sound, doesn't have any instruments, but his heart is full of immense devotion for the Lord. And as he chants, tears come out of his eyes. So many times we may not be attracted by their singing, because we are more attracted by the music, by the instrument, not by the holy name. So this is where the difference of bhav is. So when bhav is very superficial, when emotions are superficial, because we don't understand the basis of that. We will discuss this later on in Jaiva Dharma. So one is called Vastu Vaishishtya Anapekshaniya Bhav, and one is called Vastu Vaishishtya Apekshaniya Bhav. One where there is some apeksha, there is some consideration of that particular object, at how beautifully Krishna is decorated, what kind of clothes he's wearing. So that affects our mood. But one who is actually seeing Krishna, he will not care about what he's wearing, because Krishna is not beautified by the clothes that he's wearing, but the clothes and the jewelry that he's wearing are beautified by him, right? So this is where understanding the Siddhanta, who Krishna is, who we are, what is our relationship with him. The more we understand the clarity of this Siddhanta, the philosophy makes our mood very solid, to the extent that it will never then deviate. We will not ever fall off this path. So just like when a building is constructed, that building, if it has a very deep and very strong foundation, then no matter what, whether there is a strong hurricane, whether there is a um, big windstorm, or whatever may happen, an earthquake, if it is a very strong building, specifically the strength of the building is not determined by how is the material which is above the ground, right? The strength of a building is determined by what is under the ground, how deep it is, and how deep and well that foundation has been done. So similarly, our devotion is not determined by what we show externally, but what is inside us, what is within us. And that what is within us, when it is based on proper and clear understanding of the Siddhanta, of the philosophy, then we will have a very strong foundation for bhakti. Therefore, in Chaitanya Charitamrit, it states in Adi Leela that Siddhanta Baliya Chitte Nakar Alas, that to understand the Siddhanta, to philosophy, we should never do alas. Alas means laziness. We should never shy away from discussion of philosophical truths. Iha haite Krishna lage sudrid manas. Because more we understand it and the more we absorb it, then our mind will become very fixed. Then no matter what happens, just like that building, no matter how strong the earthquake or the hurricane is, it does not fall down. Similarly, a devotee who's very fixed in the Siddhanta, under no circumstance he will ever deviate from the path of bhakti. Now, the important here to understand is, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur will also explain in Jaiva Dharma, that what type of knowledge, what type of Siddhanta, that gyan, that knowledge which is favorable for advancement in bhakti, not that gyan of the Brahmavadis or Advaitvadis, those who do not believe in the personality of the Lord, those who are monists, and other type of yogis, which is not very favorable, which is not aligned with the mood of bhakti. That gyan is not something that we should pursue. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specific cautions, Mayavad Bhashya Shunile Haile Sarvanash, that we should be very careful about what we hear. Specifically, if we hear from those who themselves have no devotion towards the Lord, On the contrary, they deny his existence. By associating with such people, then we may also become weak. So we should be very, very careful. So this is one reason why, one, it makes our mood very strong. We become very fixed up. And secondly, it removes our doubts. And Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says to Arjun, Sanshay Atma Vinashyati, that if you have any doubts about what I am saying, then you will not be very fixed up, right? So therefore, make sure that you ask all the questions, because anyone who has sanshay, who has doubts, he says Vinashyati, that ultimately he is going to fall off this path. So, and doubts are natural to come, right? Specifically in our conditioned state, we live in a world where people are generally not very God conscious, and that is the way this material world is. And even at the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, people were not very God conscious. And then mostly we are associating in society like that. And then even our own previous impressions may cause many doubts in our mind. So whenever we have doubts, we must go and get those clarified. Therefore, Krishna encourages Arjun. Arjun asks about 16 questions throughout Bhagavad Gita, and the whole Bhagavad Gita is, Krishna answering those questions. All our scriptures, whether it is Mahabharat, or it is Srimad Bhagavatam, or Ramayan, all the Puranas, they're all question answers. And same is the style in Jaiva Dharma, where it is a beautiful storyline. And as we start reading it, it is written in such a beautiful way. It is not just philosophy, but it is along with a beautiful storyline. And some people have wondered whether this is a true story or not. I don't think that's important, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written, it is certainly, even the background and the storyline is certainly absolutely true. But whether it's true or not true, the important thing is the way the question and answers are structured. So everything is question and answers, and therefore, why? So that we can clear all our doubts. And specifically, reading Jaiva Dharma, I had that personal experience, and I'm sure many of you who have read it must have experienced similarly, that when you start with the first part of the book, the first chapter, you read the first question, as you are reading the answer, then another question pops up in your mind based on that answer. And typically you will see the very next question in the book itself is that very question that was in your mind. So almost everything that is coming to your mind, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has answered it in this Jaiva Dharma. Therefore, our Gurudev also would say that if someone does a serious study of Jaiva Dharma, then there will be not any question that will be left unanswered. At least all the basics, important things we will understand. The next reason why we should study the Siddhanta is to understand the real purpose of what we are doing. So in process of bhakti, we perform many activities. So whether it is chanting, whether it is observing fast, it is worshipping the deities, so many different things we do. And if we do them without proper understanding, then we'll not get the benefit. Of course, we will get some sukriti, some benefit is always there, right? That's how merciful the Lord is. Even if we do something knowingly or unknowingly, we will certainly accrue some benefit. But the real benefit will not come because we don't understand the purpose of that. So I was narrating yesterday also that I once met, it was, the Janmashtami was about to come. It was about, 3 or 4 days away. And I met someone and the discussion started about Janmashtami. And on Janmashtami, most devotees, they try to observe Nirjala fast. So that means without even drinking water, they try to observe the fast. So we were just discussing that, I told this person that, Janmashtami is coming and we are going to try and observe Nirjala. Sometimes it's not that easy. And he says, "Oh, Prabhuji, for me it is very easy. I observe it very easily." And he was not someone who was actually initiated or anything. I just met him at some event. And he said, "Oh, I am able to keep Janmashtami very easily." So, first of all, I was very impressed that I did not think that he was even observing any fasts. And on Janmashtami, he keeps Nirjala without drinking water. So, I was very impressed. I said, "How do you do it? Can you also give me your technique?" So, he said that, the night before I eat a lot, and then I just sleep as much as I can on the Janmashtami day. I don't get up early. So as long I can sleep in, so 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something when I wake up, and then I get ready and then I go to the theater, and then I watch one movie after another. So after watching three movies or so, then it's almost midnight, and then maybe 11 o'clock he goes to a local temple, and he says the whole day I'm very easily able to keep Janmashtami. So, well, I did not know what to tell him, because that was certainly not the technique I was going to follow. But see, this shows that the understanding is not there of why we fast on Janmashtami or for any such day. So, is it important to fast, or is it important to remember Krishna, his pastimes, and chant his holy names? Even if someone is not able to fast. So, in Hindi or in Sanskrit, it is called upvas. Vas means to live, and up means close. To live close or be close to the Supreme Lord, that's why we fast. So, our consciousness should be close to him. That's the reason we minimize the other physical activities of eating, drinking, and instead focus all our energy on chanting and hearing the holy name, the pastimes of the Lord, serving in the temple. That is the purpose of fasting, not just that you have to keep nirjal. So, therefore, it is very important to understand Siddhanta, why we do what we do. And finally, I think very important for us who are in this line, very important to understand Siddhanta is so we can preserve the legacy of our acharyas. The effect of Kali is such that it is bound to have an impact on it. It is bound to dilute the philosophy. So, unless some sincere devotees make an effort to stay true to what has been taught by the Lord Himself, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came 550 years or so, and what he came to give, what Sri Rupa Goswami gave, what Sanatan Goswami gave, what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote, all these acharyas have given the highest philosophy and the highest the process of how we can attain the Krishna Prem, Radha Dasyam, Unnat Ujjwal Ras. So, to be able to understand what exactly Mahaprabhu came to give, what exactly is the Gaudiya Siddhanta, what exactly is Sanatan Dharam, without understanding, then there will be confusion, and we will not be able to preserve the purity and the legacy of what we have received. Therefore, understanding Siddhanta is very important. Many times, and I've seen a lot of times, everyone is lot of interest is there in doing kirtan. Again, that's very powerful. In having festivals, prasadam, all of that activities we are very very interested in, and that's all very good. All of them are very helpful for our spiritual life. But along with that, just like Gurudev, Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and all of them said that if you have, that's the reason, if you look in their life, if you see Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, what did they spend most of their time on? If you look at the daily time, what they were spending on, a lot of time they were spending on writing books. And Srila Prabhupada also, he would get up late in the night at 12 o'clock. He would take rest at 10 p.m. and get up at 12 midnight, just after 2 hours of rest. And the whole night he was dictating into his dictaphone. Similarly, I've seen Gurudev personally, that once we were in New Jersey, and Gurudev came from Washington, from Lake Washington, which is north of New Jersey, where we were staying. There was a big festival, and he came to our place. That time I was living in New Jersey, and Ashok Krishna Prabhu is here. He may remember. He also came to take darshan. And the Gurudev reached at our home around 12, 11, maybe around 10:30. And then his flight was in the evening around 8 o'clock. So we had to leave around 5 p.m. So he came, he met everyone for some time. And then after that, he told Madhav Maharaj that please bring the book. And he was always working on some or the other book. Please bring. And Madhav Maharaj said, Gurudev, you just came after 3 hours of drive. You need to take some rest. And then we have to have a flight. They were going to Europe in the evening. Gurudev said, I have no time to waste. So I saw this personally, that even for that 1 hour before he took prasadam, he had 1 hour. He spent that 1 hour. He did not want to waste that 1 hour to take rest. So this is how our acharyas have spent so much time and effort in writing these books. And for what purpose? Not that they wanted to sell them or make money. No, their purpose was so that we will read them and understand them. So therefore, it is very important that we understand the Siddhanta. Since this book is written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I want to take a few minutes to share with you his glories. The last 2-3 days, many of you must have been hearing about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. His glories are unlimited. It's impossible to even explain them or even touch upon them, even if I spend hours talking about his glories. But very briefly, we'll try to share something. So Srila Thakur Bhaktivinoda appeared in the year 1838 on September 2nd, and in a place called Ulagram, which is also called Veernagar in Nadia district, which is close to Sridham Mayapur, about 10 miles from there. His father's name was Sri Anand Chandra and mother's name was Jagat Mohini. He was their third son, and his grandfather, Ishwar Chandra Mustafi, was a very rich landlord. And at that time, he was very powerful, the grandfather. And his own father, Anand Chandra, was a very great devotee. He was a very simple person and very devoted to Lord Nityananda. So from that early childhood, he had some impressions from his father's training. But in general, at that time in Bengal, there was a lot of degradation of the Sanatan Dharma and the religious values. So even though Mahaprabhu had appeared only about 300 years ago, and after that also there were 6 Goswamis, Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, and then there was Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So many great illustrious acharyas had appeared. But again, the effect of Kali is such that at that time in Bengal and throughout most of India, there was significant degradation of Sanatan Dharma. So there is a beautiful autobiography that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. I just want to read a couple of one paragraph from there, where he explains, and he's a young boy, and that time also he was noticing that how people were so absorbed in simply enjoying themselves. So he writes in this book that when I was young, I would see that the people in that village, this village of Veernagar, and it was a very rich village. And he said everyone was simply interested in enjoying and partying. He said there would be extravagant displays of firecrackers that would light up the sky. Dancers would exhibit artistic displays, and women would dance while onlookers showered money on them. Everyone was drawn to sense gratification. The desire to follow dharma became greatly stunted. As the night would progress, the poets would sing, and forming two groups, they would debate with each other. The revelry would progress unhindered while everyone would eat. But the more that he expressed concerns about is, although people would derive great happiness from such festivities, many goats would be mercilessly slaughtered and sacrificed. Being driven by the greed to eat these goats, so called Brahman Pandits would flock to these places. So he's saying that even the Pandits, the Brahmins, who are supposed to be not eating meat, even they would come. So see, this is happening back in 1800, probably 30, 45 or 48, almost 170 years ago, he's describing. So similar conditions, what we see even today. So he said the condition of the society was very, very degraded. And although there was no lacking of any material commodities and facilities, service to Sri Hari was conspicuous by its absence. So he explains in great detail how the society was. And nobody actually had any understanding of what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. Even the Gaudiya Vaishnavas were looked down upon. They themselves did not fully understand. There was proliferation of what is called up-sampradaya, aul, baul. This is described in great detail. We would not go in detail in Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are not real disciplic successions, but divine disciplic successions that came. They claimed that they were followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they were engaged in all kind of abominable activities. So during this, with this background of the society, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared. That time his name was Kedarnath Datta, and where the condition was such that as he grew, he went to school. He had a very difficult life at times because his father passed away very early. All his brothers passed away at early age. He was married at a very early age, but he was constantly pursuing the understanding of Siddhanta philosophy. And at the age of 10, and this was, when he was just about 10 years old, he writes in his autobiography that when I was 10 years old, he said, "What is this world? Who are we?" These two questions arose in my mind when I became 10 years old. I would think about all these questions continuously. So at the age of 10, just like Prahlad, he was also thinking at that young age that where has this world come from? Where have I come from? Who am I? This is the start of spiritual life. So, actually, in seriousness, in reality, our spiritual journey does not begin till these questions start bothering us and we want to seek answers to who really I am and who is the Lord, how this world came into existence, where would I go after death. So he said, I would continuously think about these questions, and he would, have discussions with any sadhu that he would find, any philosopher he would find. So through his formative, years, he listened to a lot of these different philosophies. But again, he's not an ordinary person. He was not learning through this. He came to give us something. He's an eternal associate of the Lord. So he, through his, as he grew, he started writing. I again would not go into the detail. He has written in his autobiography, and there's some nice books about Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he started writing from a very young age. He was a prolific writer and was able to write in many languages. He wrote in Bengali, English, Odia, Sanskrit, Urdu, Farsi, many different languages. So he started writing and started speaking, and started by his writing and speaking, he started cutting the false conceptions that people at that time had about the Gaudiya philosophy. And not only this, that he was, so he was married, right? He was married. We were discussing this morning also. He became the district magistrate, which is a very senior position. That time India was ruled by the British. and he got employment in the administrative side, and he became a district magistrate. So had a lot of official responsibilities as well. Many times he had to travel to many places to make sure that the law and order was maintained. But throughout this whole thing, even when he had almost 9 or 10 children, but his time that he was spending on writing and reading and spreading the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that dedication never wavered. So this is an example for a lot of us who are in the householders life. Nowadays, many times we feel we don't have time, but we see in the life of our acharyas that how they managed their time so effectively. Because if you think about it, what is our greatest treasure that we have? The greatest treasure that we have in this life is the time that we have been given in this human body. And that time is limited. And when the time comes, then we will leave this physical body. So while we have this human body, we should make the best use of it and be very cognizant, be very mindful of how we spend our time properly, in while maintaining our families, while maintaining our body, because this is the vehicle to make spiritual progress. But at the same time, we should also not neglect and try and spend more and more time on the in the spiritual pursuits. So he was a householder, then he took Vanprasth, and then finally at that time he retired or went to Godrum, which is one of the 9 islands in Navadvip. And we will hear a little bit more about Godrum, because the whole background of Jaiva Dharam is Godrum Dweep only. So that's where the background or the storyline starts from. So he stayed there. He was doing his bhajan, writing books, and then he took sannyas, and then he built Swanand Sukhad Kunj, which was close to the Godrum Surbhi Kunj. So today also you can go, and very beautiful place where Swanand Sukhad Kunj, which is the place where Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur was staying. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's contributions are unparalleled. We discussed it yesterday, also today morning. But again, briefly, I would like to share his greatest contribution was the books that he wrote, that he re-established what had been lost. Again, in one sense, knowledge never gets lost, but for some time it disappears, or it is not available, or misconceptions are there. And then, just like Krishna says, whenever there is the degradation of religious values and irreligion increases, he comes. Similarly, his empowered devotees come. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is a very special um, devotee, he is Kamal Manjari. He is not someone ordinary, a maidservant of Srimati Radhika. He appeared as in the form of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and wrote many books. And Jaiva was probably one of the most prominent books that he wrote. Along with that, he wrote many beautiful books of kirtan like Sharanagati, Gitavali, Geetmala. All the kirtans are the artis that we sing are composed by Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And therefore, he's called the seventh Goswami. So there are 6 Goswamis, prominent Goswamis, the disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Jiva Goswami, and Gopal Bhatt Goswami. So he is considered the seventh Goswami because his contributions are no less than what those 6 Goswamis gave to the world. And then secondly, he not only wrote these books, he also laid out the blueprint for the global preaching movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had predicted, Yat iche ati nagrade gram sarvatra prachar haibe mor naam. So 550 years ago, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, he said that in every town and village of this world, Yat iche ate nagradi gram sarvatra. Sarvatra means everywhere. Prachar haibe mor naam. That my name and what I have come to give will be preached. So till Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, till that time, this holy name and the philosophy was still only within the northeast part of India, Bengal, to some extent in Odisha, Assam, Tripura, those areas, and in Vrindavan. But even within India, it was not very widespread in North India or South or West India. So, but he had this vision, and he, back in 1896, he wrote a book in English on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that was sent to McGill University in Montreal, Canada, and it was kept in the library there. So that was the first book of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that made its way outside of India. And it's the same year that His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada also appeared in this world. And he, as you know, later on came to the US, and in 1965 he came, and then he started his Krishna consciousness movement here. But the background or the blueprint of all of that was laid down by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So we are all in this Bhakti Vinod Dhara. Dhara means the current. So the current that was started, the current of Krishna consciousness that was started by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, that is the one spreading all over the world. So second, his vision of this global preaching, he started Nam Hat Vish Vaishnav Raj Sabha, and he predicted soon time will come when devotees from all over the world will congregate here in Sridham Mayapur and chant the holy names, and we see that happening today. Then another great contribution was bringing Shri Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur, who was his fourth son, and by the mercy of Vimla Devi, the consort of Lord Jagannath, he appeared in this world as the son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then helped to propagate systematically what Bhaktivinoda Thakur had given. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur provided the whole philosophical, the foundation for the Gaudiya mission. And to give it proper structure for the purpose of preaching and spreading, Shri Bhakti Siddhant started Gaudiya Mutt in 1921, almost single-handedly, with nobody and no money. And today, in different forms and different formats, the same Gaudiya Mutt, or the organization that he started, has spread all over the world. So this is again coming from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Had Bhaktivinoda Thakur not appeared in this world, we would not all be sitting here today and discussing these very sweet philosophy, this wonderful philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And then finally, his great contribution was to discover the original place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. Most of you know that pastime, and it was only him that he had that vision when he was staying at Swanand Sukhad Kunj of Mahaprabhu. He saw them dancing when he was in Godrum, and he in Antardweep. Till that time, most people thought that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared on the other side of Ganges in the Navdweep town. Today, there's a town called Navadweep. Even though Navadweep means the 9 islands, then there are 9 islands there, and that the town of Navadweep is Koldweep, and another island is there. And because of the changing the current of the Ganges, things have changed over the years. But he was the one who found out and discovered the real place of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's contributions are just unparalleled, and it is only by his mercy that we are starting Jaiva Dharam. I'll just take 5 more minutes, and then we'll see if anyone has questions. I want to stay within our time, but we will discuss this a little bit more next time. And then we'll start the chapter 1. But what is the speciality of Jaiva Dharma? Why is it so special from the way other books have been written? Every literature that has been written by our acharyas is supreme. It's there. So it's not that there is one is less or more. All of them are very powerful. But the way he wrote Jaiv Dharam is that he took the essence of what our Goswamis have given, specifically Jiva Goswami, who wrote the Shat Sandarbhas. So see, there's Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutras. But because it is written in Sanskrit, and over the years, people have done interpretations. And many times, and we see for Bhagavad Gita also, almost 1100 translations are there, but most of them are interpretations. And interpretation is something which is not conveying the true meaning of what the author or the speaker is saying. So most of these are not translations, they're interpretations. So similarly, Bhagavatam, there was so much interpretation, and Jiva Goswami, he was the nephew of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. And what Rupa Goswami gave, was Sanatan Goswami gave. Jiva Goswami then very concisely, systematically put it all together in 6 books, which are called Shat Sandarbha. And these are called the Tattva Sandarbha, Bhagavat Sandarbha, Paramatma Sandarbha, Preeti Sandarbha, Krishna Sandarbha, and Bhakti Sandarbha. Voluminous books. And if any one of you have read, amazing books that Sri Jiva Goswami wrote. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he took all of this, of all the Goswamis, and then even before from Gita, Bhagavatam, and very systematically, he put it together in Jaiv Dharam. So just like when you go to school, I was at the start of this, I was saying you start from kindergarten and then you progress one standard after the next, and you go to high school and then university, and then you go and do postgraduate study. So he created a textbook which can be used for our starting from our spiritual life, kindergarten, all the way to postgraduate studies. So there are 3 sections of Jaiv Dharam. The first section, which we are starting, is focused on Nitya and Naimittik Dharam. What is the eternal religion and what is the temporary religion, which is not real religion, but it is there for only temporarily. So first part focuses on that, and it is based on Bhagavad Gita, many of the Vedic scriptures, and so the Vedanta Sutras, like that. And then the second part focuses on Sambandh Gyan, Prayojan, and Abhidheya. And there he took everything from the Bhagavatam, the Sandarbhas, the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and then finally he wrote this. The third section is called the Ras Vichar, which is the highest part of the Gaudiya philosophy, and that is based on Ujjwal Neelmani and books like that. So in one book, in about 40 chapters, he put together from the very beginning, from the very basic, all the way to the highest philosophy. So I just want to, in conclusion, read one paragraph from the introduction written by Param Gurudev. And he says that Jaiv Dharam contains a thorough discussion of the nature of Dharma, our relationship with Dharma, the result of following Dharma, the true import of Dharma, the fact that so-called religion that is impelled by Kali is not Dharma at all, and many other topics. In fact, one can know the meaning of all the scriptures in a condensed form simply by studying this compact book, which contains a comparative analysis of all the religions of the world through the medium of questions and answers. In brief, I may say that this little book is filled with the essence of all the scriptures of India, like the ocean contained in an earthen pitcher. It is no exaggeration to say that unless religious-minded people read this book, there will certainly be a dearth of philosophical knowledge regarding spiritual truth in their lives. So very beautiful. Gurudev also strongly recommends that we should all read the introduction to Jaiva Dharma. And we will discuss a couple more points from the introduction next time. But what Param Gurudev, Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj is saying, that in this one book, very masterfully, Shri Bhaktivinoda Thakur has, like the entire ocean in a picture, he has put the conclusions, the essence of all these various scriptures in one book. So if we don't have time to study everything, if we read one book, then our life is successful. So once again, thank you everyone for joining, and we will continue next time. But let's see if anyone has any questions or any comments. You can unmute yourself, and we can discuss the questions.
Hare Krishna, Dhanvat Pranam Prabhuji. Very nice explanation. I've never read Jaiva Dharma, but I had a very, big time desire that I would learn it. So it was very nice to hear from you the basic, preface and why we should read it. I hope in days to come I'll be learning more from you. But my only question, Prabhu, here is that how to keep, you said Utsaha Nishchay Dharyat, right? We all know about it. How to keep it, like what will happen is things will come up, the short term things like, say work or family or something comes up, and then you sacrifice the bigger, higher purposes for that. So, how to keep the Utsaha up there for listening more or hearing more or learning more?
It's a good question. And um, in his autobiography, also, he says, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, and I can say from some personal experience, the most important way to stay enthusiastic is to be in the right association, not just in association, but in the right association. So there is a word called, a phrase, Swajatiya Snigdh Rasik Vaishnav. Swajatiya means in association of devotees who are of similar mood, who are also enthusiastic, who have a deep desire to make spiritual progress, who are not spending the time doing prajalpa or doing things which are not very favorable to bhakti, but who are actually very, very committed to making spiritual progress. That is the key, finding the right association and sticking with such devotees to maintain our enthusiasm. And secondly, simple things like this is to sit, and I would, of course, sometimes association also becomes a challenge. And simple things like, every day, just doing something simple, like in the night, you lie down and before you go to sleep. And Gurudev used to say that each one of us should do this exercise at the end of the day. He said, just like a businessman, when he closes his shop, so he does debit credit. What did I make today and what did I lose today? So he does at the end of the day. And if he didn't make enough money, next day he's going to work harder. So at the end of the day, it's actually a very, very useful exercise. You kind of think of, what did I do today? Did I really spend any time making anything, doing anything spiritual? Did bad thoughts come to my mind? Did I do something wrong? Could I have done something differently, that I could have found maybe 10 more minutes or 20 more minutes for reading 1 or 2 pages of Bhagavad Gita, or listening to one lecture, or chanting 2 extra rounds of mala? So doing this internal, and in his book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Shikshamrit, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says that the devotees sometimes feel unenthusiastic. Sometimes they may even go and fall into some sense gratification. And he says, as long as they keep doing that analysis, internal thing, and some level of repentance that I'm a bit weak right now, I'm not able to do what I should be able to do, but be mindful of that, right? So as long as the desire is there, the mind will do all kind of things, right? It will cause many times this lack of enthusiasm. But doing these things, association, mindfully think of what you have done through the day, do some quiet time and think about it. That's how we try and keep our enthusiasm up.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thanks for the practical tips.
Okay, so I think Anant Pradhani Didi, she is writing. Let me just read her question. So, so what you're saying is, I'm just trying to scroll down. So let me just see. Okay. I have heard that Shastra said 3 things must be followed for fasting to be successful, for fasting to give highest result: no material talks, no sense gratification, no violence to any living beings. Is this also important along with or inherent within Upavas? Yes, this is all important. So if we are doing fasting, but at the same time engaged in material conversations or prajalpa. Now, of course, practically speaking, what is material talk? I would not call material talk as, because then you will say, Prabhuji, do we take time off from work? Well, you're working, and if it's a day of fast and you have to go to work, whatever is necessary for your work, that is not considered material talk, right? That is something that you have to do to take care of your work. Material talk is something which is not related to work, it is not related to bhakti, and you're doing useless gossip. That is material talk. So that we should certainly, not only on the day of fasting, but even otherwise we should avoid, because it does not give any real benefit. And no sense gratification, that's again, of course, not on the fasting day, even other days. That is one of the basic principles of spiritual life, that whatever is required to maintain our physical body, we should certainly accept all of that, but there should not be any indulgence of senses. And then no violence to any living being. So all these 3 are not only just for the day of fasting, but this should be done every day. These all are part of our sadhana. Okay. But if specifically on a fasting day, if you do any one of these, then of course there is no benefit of fast. So the most important thing, and Gurudev would also say many times, if you're not able to fast, for example, because of your health does not allow, for example, you're not able to keep nirjala, that's perfectly fine. You can take a little prasad, but the more important thing is you should chant more, you should read more, you should do some seva as much as you can, and certainly not engage in any prajalpa or anything which is not favorable for bhakti. Those are the more important things. But yes, of course, if you can fast completely or without water, that is great. But it all depends on everyone's physical situation. Okay. Okay, is anyone else has any questions? So I think then we will stop here. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll meet again next Sunday at the same time. Hare Krishna, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Danvat Pranam. Thank you so much for
Hare
the
Krishna.
space.
Krishna.
No,
Dandavat pranam.
Hari Hari Bol.